Hi, I'm Steve Murphy, and welcome to the Insider Exclusive. Today, we have some breaking headline civil rights news featuring the Cochran firm. Stay tuned.
They were injured by members of the staff and various members who were present at Tequila Hoppers and were subjected to a hate crime.
I was trying to find an attorney because I felt like, I was really violated here. You know, I felt like I was everything was wrong.
It was a big joke. It was just a joke. Can't you take a joke?
It's just like a betrayal. It's like looking for things to get rid of people.
Our founder, the late Johnny L. Cochran Jr., stood for these injustices to rectify. And we at the Cochran firm Los Angeles are there ready, willing, and able to correct such injustices.
Here with me today are two of the Cochran firm's finest lawyers, Daniel Carnelucci and Valerie Brennan. Welcome to the show, Daniel.
Thank you, Steve. Nice
Welcome
to be
to
here.
the show, Valerie.
Thank you for having us.
Now, I understand you specialize in handling discrimination cases and sometimes against some of the biggest names, corporate names, and government authorities that we see. What are you currently representing? What kind of cases?
Well, currently we are representing a few of our cases deal with discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation and race. But we handle all kinds of discrimination against gender, race, disability, sexual orientation, things that are protected under the statutes in our Constitution. So, but lately, this last week, we bundled up a few cases and filed cases concerning sexual orientation and race harassment, discrimination, and retaliation.
And some of the cases were against some of the biggest names we know, like Costco, right?
Yes.
The Los Angeles Sheriff's Department, is that right?
That's true.
And what were some of the other ones?
Actually, there was another one against Keys European, an auto sales
It's a big one
business,
here in the Valley.
in Van Nuys. And additionally, there was a case that was just filed yesterday or the day before concerning a hate crime that occurred at Tequila Bar and Grill in Upland.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about, when a person is discriminated against and they come to you. For example, the tequila, is that it? Tequila Bar and Grill?
It's actually Tequila Hoppers.
Tequila Hoppers Bar and Grill. This case, what actually happened? And by the way, I want our audience to know that we actually have some of your clients here today who can tell their personal story, but tell the legal end of it. What happened in that case?
Well, the legal end of that particular case, it involved two individuals along with their family members visiting a bar in Tequila Hoppers with their family just to enjoy a quiet dinner, and unfortunately it went awry insofar as they were injured by members of the staff and various members who were present at Tequila Hoppers and were subjected to a hate crime.
Yeah, when you say injured, I read in the information that you sent to me that the staff and the patrons physically beat them up.
That's correct.
You have another case, automobile dealership right here in the San Fernando Valley, Keys. What's happening in this case?
That case deals with race discrimination as well as perceived sexual orientation discrimination. Mm-hmm. This individual originated from the San Francisco area, and because he was from the San Francisco area, his coworkers assumed or perceived him to be homosexual.
So their coworkers assumes everybody in San Francisco is homosexual, or what?
It's outrageous. So thereafter, any type of patron that came in with license plates that showed either a rainbow or some indication that the patron was a homosexual, those patrons were directed to our client, and statements to the effect, well, you know how to handle those kind of people, you're from San Francisco, were indicated to him. Additionally, he was subjected to several props in his work area, a calendar, a Playboy calendar where African-American male in completely naked was there with a note to our client. Additionally, there were other racial actions or discriminating racial actions against our client. It's amazing that these kind of things are happening in people's workplaces
Right.
in
Now,
this day and age.
In this particular case, the person was an employee of the company, right?
True.
And they were an employee for 3 years.
True.
What eventually happened? Are they still working there? Did they have to leave there? What happened?
He was constructively terminated in the sense that the situation got so hostile and he was so shunned after he had complained about it
Yeah.
that he ended up needing to quit his job because his emotional state was such that he could not withstand that type of hostile work environment.
So if someone is watching this show today and they're experiencing the same thing in their workplace, like your client, what should they immediately do?
They should complain about it, and they should paper trail a complaint.
And complain where? At that company?
Yes, they should
Okay.
actually complain about it and also keep a copy of the complaint. And if they don't do anything, go up the chain of command and complain about it again and keep a copy of the complaint.
How-
That way they can actually prove that they complained about it at a particular time and event.
And that's important.
It's very important because then you thereafter determine what the employer does with that complaint.
Yes.
The employer could either ignore it, they could either retaliate against you, or we all hope that the complaint would reap its benefit and the action would be corrected.
In this particular case, your client had to quit. He couldn't stand the environment anymore. right?
True, he had complained about it to his superiors, and he eventually ended up being retaliated against for charges against him. They were actually trying to trump up charges against him.
Like
for,
what?
They accused him of prompting the sexual orientation harassment.
Right.
And they actually disciplined him for that after the complaint had been issued. And also the process of just the interrogation process that he underwent, we consider to be harassment, and that's what we are claiming in his complaint.
In a situation like this particular client, when they come to you and they come to you because what do you do at this stage? Do you contact their former employer and write them a letter and said, my client suffered, or these circumstances and that sort of thing, or do you immediately file suit against them?
It depends. It depends on the timing of the events. Sometimes we file suit because we have to preserve our client's interests in terms of statute of limitations or other administrative remedies.
And that statute of limitations is usually, what, 1 year?
Well, we usually file under the Department of Fair Employment and Housing. It's 1 year from the time that they issue a right to sue letter. And it's they have to complain before the Department of Fair Employment and Housing within 1 year from the time of the event.
So the steps that a person should take is, if they are currently being discriminated against at their place of employment, is file a complaint with the management, see what happens. Nothing happens, then they file a complaint with...
I would actually suggest that the patron or the employee file several complaints, because
Yeah.
the more complaining
Do you do with
he
the
or she
employer?
do-
With the
yes,
employer.
with the employer. And then thereafter, I would look to other sources, administrative remedies, either the EEOC or the Department of Fair Employment and Housing. Those are our administrative remedies that need to be met before you proceed into your civil arena.
Do you find that a lot of employers, when they are brought these complaints, do anything with them?
Again, it just depends on the employer and depends on the situation, and also whether those types of conducts are documented to the
Right.
employer. So it really just varies, and unfortunately, at the Cochran firm, we see many of the most severe cases of discrimination and harassment to where certain things haven't been done, and
Right.
which is why we're pursuing their civil rights.
You have another case that we're going to have someone on this show soon here, Costco, which everybody knows the company. 18 years a person was an employee. Are they still employed there?
Technically, he's on leave because
Okay.
his doctor's telling him that not to go back to that hostile work environment.
Right, same kind of situation, a hostile work environment.
Yeah, this individual, it's very tragic. He dedicated 18 years of his hard life to this company, and he has he's homosexual by sexual orientation.
Yes.
Additionally, he has disabilities, but it never really affected his work ethic or his work performance at all. He was a stellar employee, front-end manager, and he ended up being forced out of the company after 18 years of dedicated service through discrimination and harassment on the basis of his sexual orientation and his disability. In addition to that, and what is most egregious about his case, is there was a pretty intense or serious violation of his privacy rights because a coworker had repeatedly used the surveillance equipment in the actual warehouse to zoom in on his private parts. Fortunately, he retained a copy of it, but interestingly, the employer asked somebody to erase it, and our client actually had obtained a copy of it before that occurred.
Before you file a lawsuit, do you go to the company and say, hey, look, we're going to represent this person in a lawsuit unless we can get some sort of satisfaction about what has taken place? Do you try that first?
We do. We tried that alternative measure or means of resolving it amicably. But a lot of times the employers are not interested with regards to trying to resolve it in an alternative dispute form.
In a company like Costco, there's many stores, around the country. Do you go to the local management, or does this get moved up to the corporate ladder?
Actually, before we filed against Costco, we went up, we sent out the demand to several of the people within the corporate chain of command, including their attorney, and they have not responded. So we as of the time of the filing, they did not
have
respond.
not responded
At all.
At all.
In any event, I believe that it would have been, I think, in everybody's best interest to try to resolve it in an alternative dispute resolution manner rather than invoke the civil remedies.
Well, your firm enjoys terrific success in many of these cases, and to really bring the impact of how these people are affected, we're going to bring on some of these clients here in a minute, so you can actually, so our audience can actually listen to their story.
Actually, it's been an honor to represent these clients and many other clients that have been so severely and drastically discriminated against. Our founder, the late Johnny L. Cochran Jr., stood for these injustices to rectify, and we at the Cochran firm Los Angeles are there ready, willing, and able to correct such injustices, not only for our brothers and sisters in the gay and lesbian community, but all walks of life. Because at the Cochran firm, there really is no skin color or sexual orientation. We're all spiritual beings having a common experience.
And my first guest and Daniel's client in a Costco suit is Rodney Hall. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Nice to meet you.
I was reading this information. You worked for Costco for 18 years.
Yes, I have been.
And basically you were chased out of town.
Yeah.
And how does that make you feel?
Well, it's a very upsetting situation where I spent most of my life there, and this is my second job, basically, in life. And giving 110% to them, I was loyal, and I believe in the company. But in seeing this, it's just like a betrayal. It's like looking for things to get rid of people, and well, for me, looking for things to get rid of me, and a trumped-up review, a person that's looking at me on a videotape, and it's my own boss.
Yeah.
And finding that out, trying to erase the tapes, having facts and knowing these things, it just really broken me. And having also health conditions, it's really hard to, maintain and try to be there going through this. And I had to seek advice from the Cochran firm. I'm glad they're representing me.
Where were you working at Costco? What city? Here in L.A.?
It was here in L.A. at Los Felix.
Okay. And you worked there for 18 years, but this activity didn't last for the whole 18 years. It started a few years ago.
Just this past year or so. It's like the last couple of years. And I've complained about it. And I saw the lackadaisical type of attitude about trying to fix the problem as far as individuals spying on me. And I knew that the individual used the camera to spy. And it was so uncomfortable when I complained about it, and just nothing wasn't done.
If you had a word of advice to other people that may be, undergoing the same kind of treatment at their firm, what would you recommend that they do too?
I recommend them to come forward. I'm the type of guy where
to the management.
I would come forward to management. don't be afraid. I think with this situation I'm going to, hopefully I break a barrier with people that with health conditions and people that are of color, you know, and that don't feel like they can, but they can. They can't, but they can. People, they are felt like they're going to get terminated, or, you know, that people are going to look at them a different way. But it's worth it all just to have a peace of mind and integrity. You leave with your integrity.
Now, Daniel, you filed a suit on behalf of Rodney just last week?
Yes, on the 10th of December.
And I understand from our previous conversation that you initially, when you contacted them, they didn't respond at all.
That's true.
I find that unbelievable. I just, it would seem to me you would have good customer service relations when a problem comes up, you know, to address it.
I would have thought that they would have addressed it by now, being an employee as long as I have and giving them so much. And I'm just upset about not caring, not even getting a response.
How's this case look, Daniel?
This case looks very promising in the sense that Rodney was wise. Rodney actually paper trailed. Rodney complained about it, and they didn't do anything about what his complaints stated. And he complained again. He complained again, and we have that paperwork. Then we also have some statements from people that have come forward and indicated, you know what, this is the situation as to what Trump charges that they wanted to trump up for Rodney after he complained about it. So there's a lot of evidence on Rodney's behalf that what happened really happened. And we would like Rodney to know that we are very honored to represent people that have the guts and the stamina to stand up and be subjected to ridicule for having disability or having an orientation that is not heterosexual, or having problems in terms of race or whatever protected category. Individuals need to stand up for justice, and the best way to do it is paper trail and then seek outside help, like the administrative remedies that we mentioned.
In your particular case, you filed complaints with the company.
Yes, I did.
Before you came to the Cochran firm, did you go to any other, like the equal employment opportunities?
I went there also.
And you filed a complaint with them?
Yes, I did.
What did they do?
They supplied me with information to, they told me I had to get a right to sue letter. That was basically what it was. And until I got that, and that's when I went to the Cochran.
And a right to sue letter is what?
It's actually a green ticket to start your lawsuit, because under the statutes that protect against discrimination in California and federal statutes pursuant to the Title VII, you have to meet an administrative remedy first before you initiate a lawsuit, which means you have to go to either the EEOC and in California the Department of Fair Employment and Housing to file an administrative complaint. They could either take it on themselves and investigate and start gathering evidence, or if you choose, that you could ask them to issue you an immediate right to sue letter, in which once that is issued, then you can initiate a lawsuit within a certain period of time.
I want to thank you very much for coming here today. It's very courageous of you, and we wish you much success in your lawsuit.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for representing us.
Thank you for having me.
Valerie, you brought your client here.
Hi.
I appreciate that. And Lance, right? Lance Vivar?
Vivar.
Okay. You're the one that actually got beat up at Tequila Hoppers, aren't you?
Correct.
What happened that night?
You know, my family and I were just out for a good time at the restaurant. We were there for a pretty long time, about 5 hours. Manuel had left because he had forgot his ID, so he had to leave. Came back, no problem. I left, came back because I forgot money for cigarettes. And I came back. Manuel followed me out the second time when I was leaving and was like, oh, you know, I have money for you. Here you go. And I was like, oh, thanks. As I, you know, he hugged and said goodbye, he walked back in and he was kind of stopped and approached, and they said, you know, you need to pay $10 to come back in.
By the bouncer?
Bouncers. There's like a group of them by the door.
And but they stopped you because they observed that you were what?
Because we embraced in the parking lot when he gave me the money.
One of the important things was prior to that point, Lance or Manuel, neither one of them had been bothered or asked for another cover charge. So it was only after this public affection.
So it's kind of like harassment.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Well, and I didn't know he was harassed going back in because I turned around and walked the other way. When I came back the second time, I was by myself and actually stopped by them and said, you know, you can't come back in here. And I said, what do you mean? I just left, you know? And then they tried to charge me the $10 thing, and I said, you know, I'm not paying. And from there it just kind of went downhill.
Is this, well, tell me, we want to know what happened, you know, downhill when you're talking about this is more than one bouncer?
Yeah. There was a group
And
of
they
them.
say you can't come in here anymore. Then what happened exactly?
Then, well, I was saying, you know, I just left. My family's still in there. We were, you know, sitting there enjoying our food. And they said, no, you can't come back in here. And then they said, and they changed their story after, and I don't remember how it happened, but they said, well, for $10, I said, I'm not going to pay $10, you know, I just left. And I went to try to walk by, and I was shoved to the ground, and
You were shoved on the ground.
shoved to the ground. I mean, like, pushed hard.
Yeah.
And I just fell to the
Were
ground.
there other people around that saw this?
Yeah, there's probably about, I don't know how many bouncers, but there's a group of them, like probably 5 maybe.
So now you're down on the ground. What happens then?
They started to come towards me in a group.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm nervous because I'm on the ground and I'm thinking, what do you do here? And never been in that situation. And I started to get up, and the next thing you know, or no, while I was on the ground, I was trying to keep them away from me by kicking and just moving back, you know?
Yeah.
And then by the time I got up, I was punched in the face by one of the bouncers.
And you had not raised your hand, you had not hit anybody,
Not
and
hit
they
anybody.
punched you while you were getting up.
Yeah, I wasn't threatening at all.
Yeah.
You know, I wasn't
Just trying
to
to
fight
get back
I'm
to
not
his family.
I'm not a fighter. I'm a lover.
Okay.
No. That's what
So
I
they
said.
hit you once, and then what happened?
And I got up. One of them hit me. Then another bouncer came up and hit me. It was like they were trying to get me to fight, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm just like backing up, saying, "Leave me alone. You know, what are you doing? Stop." I was shoved to the ground again, and actually restrained to the ground this time, with a guy putting his whole body weight with his elbow on my neck.
What is these guys are bouncers, but what is the management doing at this time?
The manager was actually the one pinning me down.
And what were they saying to you?
He was saying, just get out of here, you know, or he was saying, just calm down, don't try to fight. And I'm like, I'm not fighting.
How big were these bouncers?
There was the one was probably a little under 6 foot, probably about 180, kind of stocky guy,
Yeah.
built.
But one of the important things too is while this was all going on, as Lance has shared with us, where there were several epithets yelled during
Yeah.
this time, and that's what
Well,
makes this truly a hate crime.
Yeah, because, okay, after I was restrained
What were
and
they
I
saying
got
to
up,
you?
well, I got up, okay, and then another bouncer came by and pepper sprayed me. And I wasn't even...
Pepper sprayed?
Yeah, I was trying to find my
You
sandals.
seem like a harmless guy.
He wasn't even fighting. I
Yeah.
just stood up and I'm trying to collect myself and
Yeah.
get my sandals back on. And I was pepper sprayed by another...
In the face.
by another bouncer. And after that point, I got pushed to the ground again because Manuel had came out, and that's when the profanity and
Yeah.
the word faggot was used.
You went to the hospital,
Yeah.
and you were pretty
transported.
badly beat up.
Yeah, I was
What were the extent of your injuries?
from head to toe. I had bruises, scrapes.
How long were you in the
bleeding.
hospital?
Just probably about 3 or 4 hours because they
Wow.
were keeping an eye on me. They did X-rays to make sure I didn't have like a concussion or
Now,
any broken bones.
did Tequila Hoppers or the management contact you afterwards?
No.
Were you just thrown out of the place? Did anybody walk you to the door?
Okay, the way it kind of transpired was I was out there, the Manuel came out, and he had found me beat up and pepper sprayed. He turned around and approached him. He was attacked by them.
He was beat up too.
Yeah,
Yes.
he was choked, thrown to the
So
ground.
you're representing both of them?
We're representing the family in this action.
Okay. How did you end up at the Cochran firm?
Well, I was trying to find an attorney because I felt like, you know, I was really violated here. You
Yeah.
know, I felt like I was totally, everything was wrong.
Right.
You know, it just didn't feel right. So I
Mhm.
just needed to talk to somebody with some legal advice to find out, you know, what is my standing here.
Listen, I want to thank you for coming on the show. It's
Thank you,
brave of
Steve.
you. Stay out of trouble.
I tried.
It's not an easy situation. We now have one of the other clients that the Cochran firm represents, Noel David. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I understand that you worked at Keys European right in the San Fernando Valley, Van Nuys.
That's correct.
You were a technician there
That's correct.
for 3 years.
Yes.
And now you have Daniel representing you in a case that you filed against him. What happened at your place of employment?
Well, it's really a long story, but it's all started back to where, because I'm from San Francisco, that I'm perceived homosexual.
Mm-hmm.
And I would have clients that would actually come in with rainbow plates to the dealership to get service, and it was a big joke for everyone to go get Noel because he's real good at dealing with those kind of individuals because he's from San Francisco.
Did this start from the day that you were employed there? Or?
No, this is probably about a year after I started there.
And was there a particular person or somebody that came to Keys working there that started this whole thing rolling, or what?
Several individuals.
Okay.
Yes.
You went to management
Yes.
and complained.
Yes.
What'd they do?
Nothing. Nothing. Actually, things got worse after I complained.
Because what did they say to you?
It was a big joke. It was just a joke. Can't you take a joke?
Are you still working at Keys?
No, I'm no longer.
So you had to leave there.
Yes, based upon my doctor's recommendation
And your doctor said what?
that I should no longer be working there based upon the hostile environment.
For everybody who's listening and watching this show, what would you recommend if they're having a problem at work that they do? What's the smart thing to do?
Well, to go to upper management would be the smartest thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
I went to my immediate supervisors who partook in all of this that had taken place.
Yes.
So if I'd recommend that they would go to upper management, and upper management would be forced to actually take action.
Right.
My particular situation was a little different because I went to my immediate supervisors
Mm-hmm.
who were actually partaking
Yeah.
in the events that had actually occurred, making of Shrek dolls, coloring the dolls black, and little stickers on the dolls saying "Beware of Noel," painting the hair black.
I understand there's some paraphernalia that you collected that you presented to your immediate supervisor
Yes.
for this harassing. You took photos of it, is that correct?
Yes,
Okay, because it soon disappeared, didn't it?
yes.
And these were placed at various places at your place of employment?
Yes, on my workstation.
I'm sorry to hear about this. I hope, and I know you're in great hands to have this rectified, and I want to thank you very much for appearing on our show today. Thank you, and we wish you much luck on this. I want to thank both of you for bringing your clients on the show. You know, before the show, they were had a little bit of a trepidation about appearing on camera, but the bottom line is they've been harmed, they've been injured, and if it wasn't for the Cochran firm helping them out in a big way, because that name carries a lot of respect in the community, doesn't it?
It's
We believe it does,
absolutely true.
absolutely.
When you win the cases, that's when you really are satisfied for the clients, right?
Well, we're satisfied all the time, I think.
Yeah.
And any opportunity that we have to promote awareness, basic human rights and civil
Yeah.
rights, we're satisfied. And
Yeah.
just that we're helping individuals who've been wronged, basically.
I want to thank you, Steve.
Hey, I thank you for coming here. I thank both
Thanks
of you
for
for
having
fighting a
us.
good fight and keeping the name of Johnny Cochran out there.
Thank you.
You're doing a good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope you've enjoyed our shows. You can get more information about these programs at www.insiderexclusive.tv. I'm Steve Murphy. Come back again. Thank you.